Hello, good evening to all of you. I hope you all can hear me. Can I get a bit of thumbs up here in the chat to know that you all can hear me? Akila, am I audible? Akila, am I audible? Can you confirm? Yeah, great. So, good evening to all of you joining us today. We are so glad that you have taken this hour to be here on this important topic, a parent's role during exams. Now, at least with the CBSE, the board exams have already started. I think it was Math Grade 10 exam just the day before. There was so much mixed messaging on its difficulty level, paper pattern changing, how it is linked to competencies now, etc., etc. I think it was like sounding very stressful for the kids as well as the parents, and hence, in a broader circle, that board exams have started. It's not something which is associated only with the kids taking the exam, but to like everyone. Right, so I'm very glad that you all are here to kind of hear our thoughts on this important topic. See, we all understand that parents want the best for their children, no doubt. But what is best? That is what we want to talk about, especially in the heat of exam season. It's like walking a very thin tightrope in terms of how do we encourage excellence but not crush their spirit? How do we be supportive but encouraging but pushing them to kind of try to achieve their potential? That is a fine balance which we are going to talk about here. So today's session is designed to help you navigate that balance. We aren't here to talk about how to score 99%. We are here to talk about how to protect your child's self worth, build their resilience, build their confidence, and ensure that their identity is not defined by a single number in their board exams. But that does not mean we become very soft towards them. We don't push them. We need to continue to push them to do their best. Not some absolute best, but their best. The balance, and not either being their best, getting high scores, or trying to just protect them and not like letting them go into the world and face it. So that is the challenge which we all need to take care of as parents. The times may be tough or becoming tougher, but your child should not have to doubt your care and concern for them, right? So thanks again for joining us. Now, before I go and introduce my panelists today, I just want you to all to take care of the chat box on the right hand side. I'm sure many of you are already aware of it being associated with us for so long that you do write your comments, etc. there. But feel free to ask any questions or the polls which my team will run. Do share your answers, your perspectives, etc. there, and we will take up your questions or your comments or your suggestions and put them to our panelists as the time goes on. Right? So now coming to the panelist introductions. I have an amazing set of folks to talk to you today on this topic, each one representing a different perspective. Like we have very carefully chosen these three people to talk to you in the overall support system. So I have a teacher, I have a school leader, and I have a parent representative with me, and I know all of them for like really long years, and I'm sure they are going to add immense value to this conversation today. So, Akila, you can start adding as I introduce each of our panelists. So, I have with me firstly is Miss Jayapriya Balaji. She is academic coordinator for high school, and she brings years of experience in academic planning and is a specialist in strengthening teaching and learning practices with the students. So, she is our teacher representative. Welcome, Jayapriya.
Good evening, Priyanka, and good evening to all members who have joined today. Happy to be with all of you.
Thank you. Now, moving on to my second panelist, I have Dr. Radhika Srinivasan. She is principal of Suchitra Academy, Hyderabad. She is a renowned education leader, a fierce advocate for holistic student development, and believes that the strongest outcomes happen through deep school parent collaboration. So she can definitely talk to us on how not just to focus on exams and the scores, but also on the broader impact which any of our reactions as parents have on students' well-being. Like as parents, you are really important for them. How do you balance that? That's what I'm sure she can really talk to us about. Welcome, Radhika.
Namaste, and very glad to be on this forum. As you mentioned, Priyanka, my association with Center goes back many years, and I always enjoy my sessions, whether it is with educators, whether it is with with students. So happy to be here and happy to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. Now coming to our last panelist for today, Miss Vasundhara Panchal. She's an education consultant, a PhD scholar, and the founder of Footprints Mothers Circle. So she brings a unique research-backed perspective on parenting and the power of community engagement in a child's overall educational journey. And she also has been associated with Center for Long. She was a student in one of our programs for budding teachers. Then obviously she's an educator currently, and she also takes some of her services for online tutoring for her kids. So she is like representing all the aspects of the work which Center does. Welcome, Vasundhara, to this panel today.
Thank you so much, Priyanka, for the warm welcome and welcoming my co-panelist, Ms. Jaypriya, as well as Dr. Radhika. Good evening to one and all. I'm here today not just as an educator, but who has worked in performance academic environments, but as a parent of a schooler, navigating one of the most intense and most rigorous phases of adolescence. Post this 1 year, my son is currently in IBDP 2 and he's just completed mock 1. So this particular 1 year, 1.5, 2 years, are very crucial for any adolescence. It is the stepping in, stepping out, and then stepping up. So I'm very happy to be a collaborative individual as an educator and a parent on this forum. Looking forward to a
I'm
wonderful.
sure all three of our panelists will bring a lot of interesting perspectives, but more importantly, practical ideas basis their years of experience on what can parents do and what they should not do, even though they are stressed. The kids would be as stressed or maybe more stressed than you all. So you shouldn't keep your stress and just put it on the kids. How do you are the adults here? So you need to ensure that you bring the right perspective, and our panelists here would help you on that. So now let's move to our first question. I see in the chat that we are already talking about the stress which kids face these days, and that's what is the focus of my very first question, right? So we see the stress, but we sometimes don't understand where the stress is coming from. Is it the sheer time to be spent in exam preparation, like you have pre-board 1, pre-board 2, pre-board 3, and then you have the final boards? Or is it like just the anxiety of a fast changing future? We as adults are like really, really anxious sometimes about how fast the world is evolving. And then when it comes to kids, they're like, oh God, I just don't know what is happening to the world. And leave aside the academic part. They just don't know what is happening to the world. They think of the violence, they think of the climate change, they think of just so many things. And they're like, what, you're focusing me to study? Like, I don't even know whether the world will exist by the time I'll get into the profession. Why are you forcing me to study? So their level of anxiety, their concerns are a lot. So, but we need to understand what exactly is troubling your child at a point in time. Is it the broader anxiety? Is it the exam anxiety? Is it the anxiety of disappointing you? Right? So before we get to our panelists, why don't we hear your thoughts, audience, on what do you think is the biggest exam stressor for a child? Is it time management? Is it fear of failure? Is it comparison with peers? Or is it simply being adolescents, as Vasudha was saying, and simply being distracted? So my team is putting the question in the chat, and let's see what you all have to say. So there are few B's, which is fear of failure. There are few time management things also, distraction. But I see many time management and many fear of failure. I'm surprising I didn't see peer comparison here. At least to my mind, that seemed to be a major issue for kids, especially in this age group. Hope, but it seems like on the ground it is not. So great to see that. And please feel free to keep on putting your points here. Right? And yeah, as someone is saying that everything plays a part, obviously. That's true. Now, moving to our panelists. So, first, I'll ask Dr. Radhika from a leadership perspective. How has the nature of exam pressure changed for students today as compared to, say, previous generations? Even 5 years back or 10 years back, you, I think, would have a long experience to be able to give us some comparisons. So what are the new invisible stressors which kids have and which parents need to be aware of?
Yeah, thank you, Priyanka. And yes, almost 3 decades in education, and have seen the various batches go by, and the stressors, some dissipate and some, accelerate. But before I even get into answering this question, I wanted to share one example. A couple of years back, a student was brought into my cabin because he had indulged in some unfair means at during an exam. It was a math paper, and he was brought in, and he was already very fearful that he had done something, and I could sense that he was on the point of collapse. So I asked the teacher to go away. I asked the invigilator to go away, and I just said, "Now you sit down, have a glass of water, and tell me what was the real reason that you indulged in this unfair means." He didn't even deny it. He said, "Yes, ma'am, I had some handwritten notes, and I was copying the formulae and so on." And what he shared with me was, "Ma'am, I knew I was unprepared, or I was not well this thing with the content of this exam. And I had expressed this to my parents, but it was the parental pressure that if you fail, imagine what will happen. Your cousins and your sister and all of them have been great scorers. What will happen if you fail this exam?" That was the only thought in my head. I was okay to tell my parents that I'm not prepared, I will not score good marks, but it came with this rider, and that's what was in my mind, running through my mind. Further, I allowed him to write the rest of the paper, and he went away. He came back to me the next day and said, "Ma'am, I want to talk to you something. My parents think that I must go into science, whereas I am very good at art. I'm a great animation expert. I love sketching, and we're constantly at loggerheads about what I should do in my future, and what I can what how should I be studying and so on." And I lost touch. I moved on, but I connected with him on LinkedIn, and I found that he has his own startup now, and he has his own company, and he's doing what he loved, and he is so successful. So coming with
He's
the
not into
perspective.
science, he is into arts or graphic designing or
Yes,
something.
yes,
Oh,
yes.
amazing. Amazing.
And he has his own entrepreneurship setup, and he is doing so well. So for me to frame all of this, as you I mean and I digressed a bit, but just wanted to provide context that at many times we as parents, I'm even including myself in my role as a parent, expect that whether it is exams, whether it is a performing art, whether it is sports, we expect our child to be on the top always. That's an unrealistic expectation. Nobody is going to be a perfect footballer, a perfect keyboard artist, a perfect sketcher, a perfect at math, science, history, geography, and so on. It's a very unrealistic expectation. But just if you want to listen it to the stressors, um, I would say maybe 1 decade back, or whatever, there was some recovery time for students, where there was a de-stressing period. You finished your exam, you're waiting for the answer scripts to be revealed to you. At least, I mean, I also this thing that I wouldn't start using the battering ram until at least the answer scripts were given back.
The results have come. I'll hold on.
The results have come, and that's the time when I will find out why you didn't score. That collapse of recovery time, I think that's the major stressor. Even walking out of the exam hall, the discussion amongst parents, the WhatsApp groups, the buzz. Oh, for example, yesterday's math paper, last CBSE math paper was tricky. It was lengthy, and so even like you've not allowed the child to even de-stress from that and prepare for the next. Why are we hearing so much about everything? When you know that you're in grade 10 or grade 12, the whole world is giving you advice on how to prepare for your exam. Forget about your parents. It's the watchman in your, अरे बेटा आप 10th में हो, खेलने कैसे आ गए? the 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 school teacher, the educator, the rickshaw wala, everyone is giving you advice. So the recovery, and that's the collapse of recovery time. We're not giving from the WhatsApp this thing to the
And
dinner
do you think
table.
a lot of it is enabled because of tech, etc.? Because I think some of the stress or everyone around talking to you about your exam used to be there earlier also. The collapse you're talking about, is it triggered more by the tech and the exposure?
In some ways, yes. And in some ways, for example, you may or may not, for example, I don't have an exam giving child in my home, but just the nature of the tech and the this thing is the exam was tricky. I will even ask my neighbor, hey, exam was tricky or what? You did math paper yesterday, was it really so this thing? And that's adding to my stress. Not only have I performed maybe averagely well in math, but it's kind of taking the shine off on the rest of the papers which I'm going to give. So that's one this thing. The other one is a transmitted stressor from parents to children. You may not actively propagate it, but sometimes parents take some drastic actions like I've quit my 20-year-old job because my son is in 10th standard. I have taken a sabbatical this year from my actively teaching professors, and these are all real examples. I have given up on all my activities and I'm sitting at home. The child is already this thing. All my 14, 15 years of schooling, nothing happened. But suddenly, why is this focus on my grade 10 or grade 12? Is it such a big life and death situation that everyone's life is on hold? That's a transmitted stress. And
Interesting.
the other one is very sad that your performance is taken to be your identity. You are bracketed or put as 90% or 70% or 60% or 40%. Nobody is questioning you. You might have other interests. Children who are good at sports, they pull out from sports teams, they drop all activities. That's the expectation. And in my opinion, and I always tell this to parents, grade 10 is the least risk. You are in a school which has up to grade 12. Unless you do so badly that you fail or get like very poor marks, you're not going to be kicked out of your school. You're still going to continue. Maybe the stream choice might be limited based on your marks. But we don't share this with our students. We want to tell them that you work to your best potential, but it is the least risk. And what's happening at grade 12? Universities are saying your grade 12 marks are not the only metric. We want you to qualify in JEE, NEET, NATA, CLAT, because we feel that that is the real assessor of whether you are suitable for a university program. So I don't know in what way the grade 10 or the grade 12 scores should be made out to be a life and death situation. Uh,
Interesting.
and I think that this is propagated by the tuition classes, tuition mafia. They want to keep up that pressure that parents will feel that, oh, this is something, make or break. So already established that your grade 10 marks are not a limitation to going to grade 11. and your grade 12 marks are not a limitation to going to university.
So I
So
think given that there are many more options available today, parents should also just really internalize that these they might be milestones, but they're not the only things which will matter, and hence not just put all the pressure, as you were saying, like the transfer pressure that they themselves are taking so drastic actions in their life that kids are facing or feeling that pressure without like really someone saying it to them. So building onto this, Jaypriya, as a coordinator, I'm sure you would be seeing many of such cases. Are there some specific behavioral red flags that parents should really like look out for, that the kid is not like productively challenged, but they're becoming distressed? Like there's a difference between getting challenged because you are really working on it, trying to make it work, failing, still working. So the productive challenge versus like you're just ending up giving up. You just don't know what's the way out. Are there some specific red flags which you as teachers or parents should really keep an eye of so that the things don't become really, really bad?
Yes, I think stress is there. And when you say red flags, I would probably categorize them broadly into three, like physical red flags that we can see physically how they are, not doing the things that they usually do, then maybe emotionally. But since your question was pertinently behavioral red flags, I'd like to dwell on that. The first thing that you could make out is they're kind of avoiding things, what they usually do. Like they avoid study time or specific subjects they don't want to do because they're not comfortable. Then they may say, repeatedly say, I forgot. And there are breaks in between breaks during the study time. They want to visit the washroom, they want to drink water, they want to check on the other members. So there is a lot of break time, and they don't want to even discuss things about school or about anything related to studies. So that avoidance that they get into that mode, I think that could be one of the first signs that there's something wrong.
That's an interesting observation, something which parents can like really pay attention to because it's observable if you pay attention.
Yes, yes. And then if you probably look deeper, that could, after you see that they're avoiding, then they start withdrawing. So they'll stop sharing things about what's happening in school with their parents. They don't want to report that there's a test coming up or there's an assessment coming up. Or they want to spend time all by themselves, don't want to be disturbed. Sometimes such an extent that they even pull away from friends whom they actually bond with on a regular basis, or they don't want to sit at the dining table for dinner, which was otherwise a regular routine. So again, that withdrawal from their usual activities could be a red flag.
So, Chepriya, like a lot of changes in general also happen during this stage given the adolescence. Do
Yes.
you have
Yes.
any specific thoughts on how do you as a parent distinguish between what's like general just growing up as an adolescent, kind
Right.
of mood swings, changes, not wanting to
Right.
talk to anyone, not
Right.
caring, versus
So
some of the
probably,
things which are being triggered due to stress?
so yeah, it's debatable. We don't know exactly where, but that's where the parents' role comes in. So you have to nudge your child to see, what happened. A very very gentle nudging, and find out why is it that you are procrastinating. There is anxiety, but then you're not working on it. Can I help? Can What happened? Why isn't your friend coming in? You generally get together every week. What's happened? Is he unwell? So you go through that route, and then maybe the child over a period of time will let you know that, okay, I'm fine alone, I want to be
Needs a
alone.
lot of patience, I think.
Of course, of course, of course. Then there could be sudden outbursts, emotional outbursts. So for any small things, the children become touchy. So they break down. So actually, it's the stress building up, and they just need that little, some kind of a trigger to break down, and that's how they express that they are stressed. And that's something that the parents have to really look out for.
Yeah.
And of course, there are other, routine disruptions like staying up late, though they are not working. So they might be excessive screen time. Then think, no, my teacher has sent a project online. I have to check those. And so this laptop is, utilized not for the right reasons, not productive. So I think these are some of the behavioral changes that parents could look out as early as middle school to, I think that's one time where you can start and probably set things right and not wait for board years. So
I think
that's
another thing which is happening these days is that the stress, as Radhika ma'am was also saying, is not just grade 10 and 12,
yes.
even leading up to grade 10 or leading up to grade 12, like the whole thing has become like a pressure cooker. So coming to you, Vasundhara, Radhika ma'am gave a very specific example also of this where parents' own expectations, their own anxieties just get projected onto the like the kid. It's not like they don't mean well. They definitely mean well. They really care about the student, but in caring about the kid, they just end up propagating whatever is going in their own head. Maybe they did not do well in their exams, and hence their career did not move the way they wanted. Now they're extrapolating the same thing to their child, that if their exams don't go well, what will happen to their career? Or maybe I did not have family wealth. Now they have family wealth. Then why are they not utilizing it properly? I could study in so many challenges. Now they have everything on the like on their plate. Why are they not doing well? Like parents have just honestly, as human beings, we also have very complex emotions, right? How do we ensure that we don't project all those complex emotions on these children in our care?
So, to blend in with both of the panelists, yes, it's a very observed and a detailed, conversation that we are going through. I am a amalgamation of an educator and as a mother of my child pursuing his IB2. And so I am, yes, I have a child in my home only who is appearing for his boards in the coming April month. So to blend in both at school, whether at school or at educational institutes which have been, I understand curriculum, assessments, performance, the matrices involved, the outcomes that are important for not just we educators, but for everyone that are in the stake, that is parents and the students.
But
But
what do you
at
think as a parent? If you
so
if
as
you just remove your hat for a teacher or an educator, what about
yeah.
you just as a mom?
So I see something else. Like any mother, I see a teenager balancing identity, friendship, self-doubt, ambition, then a silent pressure. I would not say a very rigorous. Now everyone is educated, be it parent or the students. They're all educated and well aware of the pressure that is talked about in more than decades now. They are aware. They would filter the pressures that is actually there, whether it is peer or academia, anything, but still there is a pressure, the silent pressure of expectations. So I look into as at home, being around with a son who is pursuing his IB, but natural, these are all the elements which are socio emotionally intact in the environment.
How
So
do
whether
you
it is
personally like what are say just one or two things which you do personally to ensure that your anxieties and your fears or your expectations don't get passed on to your son? Just one or
So I
two
ensure
examples.
my anxiety, where howsoever low or high, my anxiety does not become the atmosphere at home. I ensure that. Whether it is, what if the next, whether it is the result of a mock or whether it is a result of a presentation or, their IOs, I just say or I just maintain the cool of not having my anxiousness moved over into the environment or passed it over to my son and his students, right? I mean his friends. So I just do not add on those lines which are typical, that is board is your life, this year is crucial, don't waste this chance. Okay, in fact of these are all back of the mind of the educator mind, but then the mother pops in saying that it's okay, you have attempts, it's wonderful that you are expressing in words, you're writing essays, you have the time and energy to still focus on and being it is, all boards are very important, but being an IB, yes, it is giving more, it gives a balance, not more or less, but it gives a balance of expression in words, actions, presentations, and then also the academia. So this helps me motivate and sustain an environment which is which is simple, which is a routine and a normal environment at home.
So
And
if I'll take what you're saying, Vasundhara, it seems more like you yourself are not really taking stress about his exams, and because you are not like propagating that. And I think that is very important for parents to see that, see, even with the best intent, best effort, sometimes the life does not pan out the way you are looking for. So there's no point very actively stressing out yourself or your child, even though these might be crucial years, because even if they do very well in the exams, you do not know what life holds for them or for you. Then there's no point ruining these interesting years which they have for you or with you. Moving
so
on to
I've
the
taken
next
this.
thing, Vasundhara, I want to focus a little bit more on how of it, which we started getting into. But before that, I just wanted another poll question for the audience. That what is the hardest part about supporting your child during revision? So you want them to be supported. How do you think you can support them? So do you manage their schedules? Do you kind of negotiate or manage their sleep, their diet, their study hours? Do you know when to help, when to step back so that they can kind of do their own thing? Or do you keep the house stress free when you are also stressed? See, it's always about a combination, but if you have to choose one thing, which one do you think is the hardest? What do you think, Vasindra? And I'll ask Chapra and Radhika, ma'am, also. Which one of these do you think is the hardest?
For me, I would just, give it in a plain one line that don't enforce anything, just co-design or collaborate together as a parent and as a student, as a child also within the home. It's very important to sustain a security sense rather than a pressure sense or disturbing sense. So I think the environment at home definitely plays a crucial part in easing out any self
Which one
doubts
do
or
you
easing
think is
out.
the hardest? I think you find that one the easiest because I see many options in the chat which say knowing when to help and when to step back seems to be the hardest. And to some extent I can correlate to it as a parent, as a mother, as a caregiver, negotiating sleep, diet. I think that's one of the best things which parents do very well. Okay, here is a glass of milk, here is your break, here is your snacks, here is this, now you go off to sleep. Okay, wake up at 5 o'clock, study from 5 to 7, then take 1 hour break. Scheduling, food, sleep, all that is still like seems controllable. But what about when you should really, really step up to support them and when you should step back so that they can figure out things on their own? What do you think, Jeffrey and Radhika ma'am?
So I think it's very critically important that you have to be the anchor and not the storm. The storm is already outside, and all. So you be the anchor. In sometimes it would just mean keeping a silence, and that's okay. You should be able to read the signs that maybe his paper didn't go too well, instead of keeping on saying it's okay if you're not doing well. It's okay, that's not going to add. It's like if someone is anxious, you say stay calm, stay calm. That person is not going to get calm. They're going to feel
Fair
even
enough.
more. That is it showing, is it like everyone able to see that I'm so anxious? So sometimes, as I said, just to be the anchor and not the storm, it sometimes it could be silence, sometimes it could be a supportive, just a listening ear without comment. Sometimes it could mean balancing the schedules. Yes, children are confused, how I should be making a study timetable. So when I spoke to my grade 10 and I said the date sheet is out, how do you plan your revision schedule? They all said, ma'am, first paper is math, we'll start with math. I said, no, you have to start with the last paper.
Well put.
You start with the last paper so that when you have reached the thing, it's almost time for the first exam. So, simple things, but it could translate to different actions at different points.
Interesting. Japriya?
Keeping in mind the comments made by Ms. Vasundhara and Ms. Radhika, I think a helpful mindset shift for parents is important. If they've understood that they have to go from how do I make sure they study to how do I help them learn to manage their own study. If that is understood by parents, I think it will actually solve the problem to a large extent. And this can't happen overnight. So it's a very gradual process. And the earlier the parents realize that, I think they'll empower the children better and it'll be comfortable for both parents and the students. So I
So building on that, Japriya, like as you're saying, and everyone spoke about, the parents sometimes want to help with revision,
yes.
want to help with scheduling, etc. As
Correct.
Radhika ma'am was saying, because kids may not know exactly how to schedule. But how do you do that without like micromanaging and ensuring that the way you were talking about, tell them how to plan instead of just planning for themselves? Can you share a few examples or tips for the parents to be able to do that?
So actually nowadays there are a lot of planning tools available, right? So we have tech helping us. So they could together explore a few tech tools or just a paper and a pen and sit down together and allow the child to first plan. As Dr. Radhika also mentioned that they could work backwards. That could be one option. So let the child try it out, not very close to the exam, but a little earlier, so that there could be some correction or intervention if there is required. The parent can step in. So let the child plan out depending on which subject is his strength, which is an area where that he needs to work more. So let the child plan out a strategy or a schedule, and then maybe the child and the parent can strike a deal on how often the parent can come and check. So it's again a together. It's not that the parent
Could also
decides.
probably help children know which are the aspects or factors they should consider. Like Radhika ma'am was saying, check what's the sequence of the paper. Like you were saying, what do you like? What are you good in? What are the
Yes.
various factors the student should keep in mind while making their plan, and then set a rhythm to
Hmm.
review it with
Hmm.
them, as you're saying, instead
Hmm.
of just on an ad hoc basis. Today you
Yeah.
found 5 minutes and you're like, okay, show me your schedule,
It's
and
not that.
then the
It
child
should be.
doesn't know that like where are you coming from, why are you wanting to check my schedule now.
Hmm. So, and then
Interesting.
also the as if the schedule is out, what is the gap between two exams, and so many other factors. And if the child wants to continue with some of his extracurricular even during exams, so those things also should be scheduled. Like I think this time the JE topper said that I did play for 1 hour even during the JE preparation. So those things should also be factored in, not just study time. So then it
True.
becomes comfortable and it's a win-win for everyone, I feel.
Interesting. And Vasundhara, what do you say to how do you ensure it doesn't become like a conflict, that you think it should be done in a certain way, the child thinks it should be done in other way, they want 2 hours of playtime, 1 hour on video, 1 hour on like physical game. You are like 1 hour is enough. You choose which one do you want. Like you cannot have more than 1 hour of playtime, free time, whatever. You want them to study, like wake up early, study in the morning because you think it's good. Kids these days are like, no, I'll sleep at 12 o'clock. I'm not going to wake up at 5. I'll wake up at 10. How do you think parents and children should collaborate and not create more stress for each other, but like really work out a schedule which works for both sides?
So this is in a pause and a continuation with the recently shared Dr. Radhika's. Um, I cannot say there is no actual word which you mentioned that, but yes, I strikingly collected that statement that mainly majorly people do say, people even parents do say that we paused our career, this is your last, I mean 12th, particularly 10th, yes there is one cutoff, but 12th you pause your career or you've stopped your career, you've taken a sabbatical. I am amongst those who have stopped her career at the peak time. And coming to this, you come to that environment where you have finished or you have simply come out of your regular routine as a parent, and now you are with your own child who has had a gap of your presence and even a gap of your understanding, your ability as an educator or as Coming personally to myself, I have had many students, irrespective of ages, and crossed 3 decades in education and then halted. Yes, it definitely has a huge impact on staybacks. So, with the clash that has and had been a year prior, 11th standard, I stopped. He's in 12th now. The clash for 6 months was very, very due. There had to be some settlement. As a parent, it had to be me. It not had to be, because this was the basic reason that he will soon fly. Not to to mind him, to provide him, to guide him, to consult and counsel him. No, but the only agenda for me individually was, he's soon to move out of the nest. He will let me cherish, let me spend some time, let me be a little support, or maybe just be a mama rather than anything. So that was the only and only reason for me to halt at the
That's
peak
a
of
very
my
interesting way to look at it, Vasundhara, in terms of like, even if you're taking the decision, like what is the root cause of that decision and how do you communicate it to the kid? Like, and I'm sure if as a parent you have those frank conversations with the kid that I'm doing this, but it's not because I want to keep an eye on you or to pester you, but because I want to cherish, like those conversations, the root cause, if the kids also understand where you're coming from, I think they can make a huge difference in how it's being perceived, instead of you taking decision for some reason and the kids assuming something else completely, and hence having like an unspoken friction of sorts. So
so
Radhika, I'm
Priyanka.
coming to you. Sorry, you were saying something.
Yes. So in this, in the conflict or in the bridging mode only, that's very important to have, to regulate oneself rather than any other. As a parent only, I sought it first that it is my decision, and it is upon to me that I regulate myself, and then that was the ease. And whatever the process was, it was a normalized struggle, particularly from my part, because I was coming from the exterior towards my interior, my home. So normalize the struggle of complete shutdown of work completely. So it was not something that or we, both me and my son and the family, we did not focus on academia. We focused on the ease that is important during these 2 years, 11th and 12th, that ease it out. You don't need to go on to building stakes of, ranks, or cross off test, or let's get together to study. No, it was just a presence, and normalize strength rather than counting on the struggle that we were facing.
No, it's very interesting to see how your points are building on each other. Like when Radhika ma'am was saying that sometimes just the presence of the peace or the silence matters as much as you're talking to the kid about, or how do you collaborate instead of just forcing your way, as Japriya was saying. So, Radhika ma'am, how do you think, or do you think there needs to be any sort of collaboration between the school and the parents also to ensure that all the three things work in tandem, like the student, the school, the parents are all working in an aligned fashion, or not that student is in some other dimension, parent and school are doing like something completely different, and they just conflict in the mind of student because school and parents are not aligned. What do you say to that?
So this happens so many times that, at school, we have a lot of institutional measures. Like, for example, at school, at the time that we distributed admit cards, we had a small ceremony where we had a small blessing note. I wrote out handwritten notes to every one of the students who were receiving an admit card, saying, "We believe in you." And I wrote out a poem for them. It's not a poem that I composed, but I wrote out a handwritten note for every one of the 120 students that were taking the
Wow.
exam. Their class teachers sat down in a quiet circle time, put them at ease, and said that, we believe in you, we trust you, and all of that. But going home, if the child is going to say, "How much time are you wasting? What are you doing?" If you're going to be a performance manager, if versus a parent, this is a conflict. So I think sensitization of parents, and having a language and a vocabulary of support is very important, very, very important. Having a language of support is so important. So we try and include the parents in these exam stress, how to cope with exam stress sessions. Sometimes parents appreciate our ways, and sometimes parents said, "Ma'am, you don't know my child. If I don't push him, he will not study only." So then, I mean, we back off and we said, okay, that is really
And instead of
because
a conflict, it's better that at least one stakeholder is managing it instead of a constant tussle. So you step back in such cases.
see, we shouldn't be adding on to the to
True.
to what's happening at home. So if for example, if I single out a parent and he'll say, "What did you tell about me to the principal?" Because she called me today and she questioned me that what are you doing at home. So we don't want that to be happening
Of
also.
course. True.
Then alignment of rhythm is also important. Like we have to communicate the schedules, like this is the pre-board time, this is the time. So we don't want that there should be travel or there should be this thing. That's also the alignment of rhythm, the alignment of language, the alignment of rhythm, and the alignment of belief, that this is what we believe in, that all our students are going to be successful, whether or not they're going to STEM, whether or not they're going to BTech, they're still going to be super successful. And the World Economic Forum, the OECD, they're screaming out the statistics and telling us that the job and the workplace is going to be so different. Then why are we stressing on that one exam rubric? I feel as an educator, and having so many conversations with educators, exams are not going to be needed any longer. Maybe we might come to this thing.
You would make
NEPs,
a lot of kids happy who are listening to this. That there would be any
I,
exams.
I
Wow.
hope so. I hope so, because we're not testing the right way. We are not testing the right things. We, all of us know that the mark list is not a definition of who you are and how successful you are. There have been people who have barely passed, but they are doing superlatively well in their career,
Like success
and
does not have a
there
single
are
definition, basically. Success
and
can
there
have
are
lots of
there are
colors.
more toppers who are lost in in the crowds now. We don't know where they've disappeared. Once celebrated as the toppers, they have now dissipated into the crowd somewhere and lost themselves in that over this thing pressurized atmosphere. So I love mnemonics, and I came up with this mnemonic with PARENT. And
Okay.
so P is presence. Vasundhara has just very well put it, that your presence is needed. Uh, Presence over pressure. A stands for atmosphere in the home. R is realistic expectations. E is
Abdullah, you
energy.
should put it in the chat. Whatever Radhika ma'am is talking about this mnemonics, please do put it in the chat.
E
Yes.
is energy and physical well-being. N is the narrative you build around the exams, and
Okay.
T is trust in the process and trust in your child. Ultimately,
Amazing.
trust is what is going to set the tone of what the child feels when he walks out of an exam, either having declared that it was a great paper, or so even when you say that, oh, I knew that you are going to score well, it kind of takes away from the fact that, I knew you are my son, you will score well.
What
But
about your
all
effort, your hard work?
the narrative and the thing is very important. What's the story you're telling your child? What is the when I speak to even a first grader or a second grader, ma'am, I want to be a YouTube influencer. I That's what I want to be. I will not be able to understand it, but that's the path to success that a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old is seeing. I want to be a gaming developer. I want to be a game developer. I want to be. And I had a student back in my previous school, a 13-year-old, who was really not so great in studies. He managed to make so much money on Discord, hosting gaming tournaments, that he was able to buy a Rolex watch for himself, which cost 15 lakhs. And he was doing drop shipping, and he was on Discord. I had to frantically call my son in the evening and say, please explain to me these terms, because it had completely foxed me. And in my mind, and it all came to light that this child was playing truant, he was missing school. And so I had this entire pitch saying, you need to be regular, you need to pursue your studies, you need to be successful. I realized that Abhimanyu has crossed 4 levels. What am
Your
I doing?
narrative needs to be redone. Yeah.
So
No,
my
that's a
pitch,
very interesting way to look at a parent's role, and even for parents and teachers and school leaders to see how their narrative needs to work for the child. It's not
we
their
need
narrative in
an
their
urgent,
mind.
we need an urgent reframing. I think that's important. A
I would
reframing.
blend. Yeah, I would blend into both, Priyanka, and all three of you. Now coming up to a very simple disclosure is my in the conflict area, when the 6 months of stopping work, it was very harsh on myself. I took up to one thing, a mirror image. It's very important for teenagers. They are very, very resilient. They are very sharp. They're very observant. So there is no much of conversation that will surface you, or would fill in a vacuum. It's very important to have a mirror image. And that is when I decided that instead of wailing away and just happening or just looking around, I would crop up all n number of things myself also. So I stopped everything and I began surfacing what next, or what is my life's target, and that was to pursue higher studies more. So the image that came, the narrative that came in the environment of our house is, now a child in 12th is pursuing his, or he is looking forward for his boards, and myself, I am into my fourth semester of my PhD journey. So we are two balancing, and the correlation is one of his project cast, and my thesis is around about mirror image again. So it was a very thoughtful decision and a practical approach as a parent to look into how would I utilize this our time, and a trust, and a very continuous progressive environment development of my child, which is soon to move. So even when we talk about this progression, it happens when it is happening in every household. We are parents who are aware, who are educated, we are listening. There are many of us listening today, and many will be advocating this center talk also. Now, this is the era that there is a shift between educators, parents, our students. Yes, we talk less, we do more. So when it comes to that mirroring each other, yes, it is all in fact with the two very base, that is parent and educators. When we join together, where educators stop 11th 12th, they
Yeah.
gradually leave the school premises and they are more at home. There is our task of parents, that is now we
No,
balance.
I really hope that our audience are really liking and finding it very, very useful. I hope all of you on the attending the webinar would be okay if we go 5-10 minutes overboard, because I'm sure it's going to add value to
I
you
have
in
an
your
answer.
relationship with the parents.
I have an
Yeah.
answer to the question that is put up in the chat box. It's not exactly as a periodic or a framework that I would provide. The question says how to know when to help and when to step back. I take it as a parental, ask. So, as parents, we must decide: are we raising a rank, or a resilient human being? It's very important. That's the shift, the mention of how drop shipping or how YouTuber or how influencer career path is about choice and about being present and mindful in that choice. So money position now has taken a second step. The regular domains, art, science, and commerce, have again taken a different shift. So there's interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, there is profile building, there is There is so much as in a composite of an rank. So the best is I answer to the person who asks whether to when to step or when to help or step down and help out. I think we should concentrate or not concentrate. Just let it be allow or just let that flow be that we should raise
And it's
and
about guiding or
correlate.
coaching instead
So
of
high
uh,
school, yeah, high
instead of
school exams are
directing.
important. High school are very important. Scores are important, but emotional safety, self-belief, and the ability to recover from any setbacks. Those are the
On
life
that
skills
note,
that we
Vasudha, I
take.
would want to move to my next session, next round of the conversation, which focuses. See, we all want the best. We all really hope for the best for the child, but in case it does not go well, right? There are always times there would always be exams, there would always be mock exams, there would be situations which don't really go the way you expected or the child expected. And in that situation, how do we protect their self-worth, their confidence? And before I ask you the questions, an open question to all the people who are seeing this webinar. Can you share one word or a phrase or a sentence of what is your reaction? What is the first thought which comes in your mind when your child says, "Oh, I had a bad day," or "I got a low score," or "My exam didn't go well, I got very nervous"? That happened. That's a fact. What is your first reaction? Not something which you feel inside, but what's your first observable reaction? Why don't we see what some of you say in the comments, and then we will talk about how we should manage it better for their sake. And Vasudhara, this builds on what you were saying just before that. How do we retain focus not just on the marks, not just on the rank, but in a more broader perspective? So I think you can just probably share one or two more examples which I think you have in mind, which I just cut you off in the interest of time. So if you can share a few more examples.
I would club both the previous conversation and current one also. If in case there's a setback, the students, appearing or any exam gone not very as is expected, it's very important for the parent at home. I'm talking as a parent only. That parent at home, after observation, or maybe the child has opened up saying it was not good, it was average, or whatsoever. The feedback that we can give is to first ask process based questions, that was it one part or which part, because
Hello.
now if you are at home or if even if you're a working parent and you know the
Satyam, can you
elements
hear
that
me? Is it our
so
our
am I
internet?
audible? Am I audible here?
Dr.
Yeah,
Radhika
am I?
Chapriya, can you hear me? I think my network probably fluctuated.
Yes.
Sorry.
Priyanka, you
I,
froze
I,
for a
I,
few
I can.
seconds,
Okay.
but you're back now.
Sure.
Am I
Thank you.
audible?
Yeah, Vasudha,
Yes,
now
yes.
you are.
So I was just linking it up with asking, the process-based question of the test or whatever hiccup they must have had. The paper's not gone good. That which section of that particular paper felt
So try to
heavy,
understand the root cause, work
root
it out
cause. Huh?
with
How
them.
was it kind? So you don't panic or you don't sense that, you don't pass that sense of panic even to the child, because there's next paper coming up. What is done is gone. It's dusted. You need to move on. You need to just, remove it. So instead of going deeper and saying an, expression loudly expressing it, gradually, that was it a concept clarity, was it something like silly mistake that you made, or was it just give yourself some fight and let's work it out. If you are in the subject, you are involved as a parent, let's work it out, what was it. So he does not, the first does not panic, second he knows it's workable. That paper 2, the next paper, the next day, probably it will not be a gap of a day also to prepare. That next day I will have a strategy to work out my strength rather than
What do you think for that, given that in schools we do a lot of exams all the time, like in boards, especially there are like multiple layer of pre-boards. I was just shocked when my friend told me that her child had third pre-board. I was like, God, by the time the child had to write the board, they'll just
exhausted.
completely like be drained. But given that we have this whole habit of making them practice so that they are like in the right framework, etc., how do you ensure, given that they're doing so many of exams, how do you ensure that their self-worth is not just tied to their marks? Like, how do you play that balance as a teacher? Because marks are important. If they don't get good marks, you ask them to prepare more and do better in the next set of exams. How do you maintain that balance as a teacher?
So I think here how we speak to them is going to be very important. The language chosen is going to be very important. And if we have a student who is struggling with a particular subject, we do ensure that the feedback or the support or whatever intervention we've planned is one on one. It's not in front of everyone. So that the child understand and ensure that, as Vasundhara put it, it's the process that we are tackling. It's not the person that we are looking at or talking about. So we share tips on which part of the curriculum you should focus on. So we know, see, the child has come to the pre-board stage. So we've spent a couple of years looking at how the child has progressed, and we know what are the strengths or what are the areas that he's not good at. So you focus on the skills that are his strengths. So those part, and we kind of know how the CBSE, since I come from a CBSE school, what kind of question papers or the assessment pattern is. So we help the child, and make sure that the child is prepared for those sections well, so that there is a gradual improvement. So we look at subject specific intervention plans, and then definitely there is even a marginal improvement is celebrated. So I think that helps. And definitely when they do 2 or 3 pre-boards, it helps them get into a rhythm, which is important. So after all, they have to sit and do a 3.5 hour exam. So definitely that helps. So still we have that kind of an assessment pattern. So that we can't do away with. But the students who
It's more
are,
about what you do with the exam. It's not just
yeah.
about taking the exam, but what do you do with
So
howsoever
then,
they do in those exams.
right. So I think that helps, and we've seen that the ways this is the way we do it, and it works, and they all come out in flying colors in the board exams.
We really wish that whatever effort all the kids are putting in really makes it worth their while and they are able to get to their potential. So I
And
think on this
also, I think
last
if I
one
may,
parting, yeah, go ahead,
if I
Shefia.
may just add one bit
Yes,
over there,
yes, sure.
that we also collaborate with the parents at every stage, ensuring that all 3 of us are speaking the same language, and it's not we saying something and the parents saying something else. And so we kind of
Can you
come.
give one or two examples of that? Because Radhika ma'am had given quite a few examples of that kind of collaboration.
Right.
If you can also share some.
So, like, suppose we insist that the child does a particular lesson in a particular manner. So, we either a mind map or a question bank or a numerical based, depending on the topic. So, we set these expectations. We share it with the parent, but the parent also follows through in the same manner. So, there is no 2 ways for the same concept. The child may get confused. Then he or she may not know which one to follow. So, there shouldn't be a confusion. So, and then even if it's a planner that we are looking at, it's collaborative. So we look at what's happening at home, discuss, and then see if everything falls in together. It's not that we expect 2 hours of study from our end. The parent says, no, it's 3 hours. So it shouldn't be that. So students who need that kind of support, it's always a collaboration that works well. Be it the timetable, be it the schedule, be it the type of resources that they use, everything should be something that all of us have agreed upon, and then the kid is
Great.
comfortable.
Great. I'm
Thank
sure that the audience would have really kind of learned from the conversation. It's not so much the enjoyment, and I really hope that this learning would make some difference in how their relationship is with their kids when they are in those board classes where the stress is much more than the other classes. And I hope you all also had a nice time in the session by sharing your thoughts, the broader audience, and even with each other. Given the passionate educators each one of you is, I'm sure some of these learnings and some of the comments which audience are putting in the chat would be very interesting for you all also. So I would really like you to thank. I would really like to thank all of you and the audience who kind of joined for this very very important topic, which focuses on the well-being for our next generation. And thanks a lot for your time. And to the audience here, I really hope you found the session helpful, the kind of tips, the kind of ways of working, the language you need to talk to, the kind of behaviors you need to observe to see whether your child is getting into distress, how you change the narrative, the nice mnemonic which ma'am gave. I really hope all of that really, really helped you. And see, this is not like a one time thing, this is a process. And you just need to engage with your child in this process to ensure you are all on the same wavelength and are working together. And I really hope that we would see many of you in our next webinar on March 6th, which is on teen study habits that actually work. And with that, I would like to thank all of you attending in the audience and to all my panelists. Thanks a lot for your time. I had a lovely, lovely time catching up with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Priyanka, just 2 lines from my side for all the parents to ensure that our child knows that I am loved beyond marks and failure is just a data. And the last and very important from my parent to all the parents, that my parents are my team. So to work as a team for our child, irrespective of any outcome. So performance is strength, and that's it.
No, as
We
each one of you saying, the teacher, the school, the parent, this child, like these all need to work together as a team for honestly well-being for everyone. It's not just about the child, like a teacher, a parent, a school leader, like all of them also are happy if the child is growing well, is happy, well settled. So I think it's in the benefit of all the four folks involved in this team that everyone does well, everyone understands each other's perspective, collaborate, and think well. So, with that, thank you everyone, and look
Thank you.
forward to seeing you again in some other session. Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye bye. Bye to all my audience.